Brought to you from the University of Texas at Arlington, this is Charlas Entre Amigos, an initiative of the Edge Center funded by the U.S. Department of Education's Title V Part B POHA grant. I'm your host, Alejandro Ruiz, coordinator of special programs for the Edge Center. Whether you're a seasoned grad student, a fresh face on campus, joining us online, or just curious about the ins and outs of academia, then this podcast is for you. I'll be your host for this journey through graduate life. Mi gente, we have a very special guest joining us today. He's a native of Oak Cliff in Dallas, the son of Mexican immigrants, a first-gen PhD graduate student in Aerospace Engineering here at UTA, and as if all that wasn't enough, he's also actively involved in the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, or SHEP, where he serves as chair of the National Graduate Committee. Perhaps most importantly, in the focus of today's discussion, the soon-to-be Dr. Reynoso is also the past president and founder of the Latinx Graduate Student Association, or LGSA, here at UT Arlington, whose mission it is to advance the recruitment, retention, and success of Latinx graduate students. David, es un placer to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
We're excited that you've come in to share a little bit more about you, and you've already got quite the resume, so I'm sure the journey here has been quite interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about your motivation for pursuing doctoral studies and what made you choose UTA?
Yeah, so, I'm an Oak Cliff native, but I went to the University of Rochester in upstate New York, and that's where I did my undergrad. And in my undergrad, I was able to do some internships that I got through the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So they had a conference, a national conference. It was 2018 in Cleveland. I went up to this table, and I didn't really know who the company was, but it said aerospace on there. And so I went up to them, talked to a recruiter, got an interview, and then a couple months later I was able to get an internship there. And so when I arrived to aerospace that summer, the person that interviewed me was my manager, and her name was Mabel Jimenez. Mm-hmm. And she was a huge advocate for grad school. She had her master's, and every time we would meet up, she would tell me, have you ever thought about grad school? And at that point, I didn't have a lot of role models who had gone through grad school. I didn't know really any Latinos in grad school. My undergrad didn't have Latino professors, in engineering at least. And so at that point I had not considered it, but she introduced me to someone who now is a best friend of mine, Lucero, and she was doing a GEM fellowship program. And from that moment, I looked into GEM. Both of them really encouraged me to apply to GEM because it was an opportunity for me to get grad school not only paid for, but to get a stipend out of it too. I did not know you can get paid to go to grad school.
Right?
Yeah. And all my friends around me at the time, all of them, when they finished their 4 years of undergrad, they're just looking for a job. And that's why I was just so surprised that grad school was really this opportunity for me to keep studying, keep going to school, get more credentials, more degrees, and get it paid for and get paid while being there. So that's kind of, my main point is really that it only takes one person to really convince or to change their trajectory in life, and that's what happened to me. Mabin really pushed me to go to grad school, and that's all it took for me to consider grad school. Surprisingly, though, I signed up for a master's program. So I came in as a master's student. Then to be fair, though, this was COVID. This is peak COVID. I came to UTA fall of 2020. Everything was virtual. I went back home. I was doing my classes from home virtually for a whole year. I did not do any research. I was only going to classes, but I had a master's. I was in a master's program with a thesis. And after that 1 year, I talked to my favorite professor from a class I did in fraction mechanics. And I said, can I join your group? And it was not that complicated to just switch to that lab. She said, yeah, sure, join. But you should think about a PhD so you could, have a long-term project. And
I like the subtle pull right there.
yeah, she was really fooling me. So at that point, I switched to a PhD program a year into my master's.
Okay.
Yeah. And, just backtracking, UTA really was a good option for me, given all the circumstances. I mean, I'm from Oak Cliff. I went to upstate New York, second snowiest city in the country.
Yeah, man, huge change.
For an undergrad, and I just really wanted to be home, be with my family. My two siblings, they grew up a lot when I was in New York. They went from being fifth graders to high schoolers.
Yeah.
So it was a good time for me to be home, but I know that UTA had a PhD program in aerospace. My undergrad did not have aerospace, so I did mechanical engineering over there, and I dove straight into aerospace. It's a similar field; they're in the same department, but they have different classes and different things.
The application's a little different, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, definitely quite the journey. I know, and little non-traditional and what students typically go through, right? A lot of them tend to stay close to home. You jumped out and went straight to Rochester, and I think that's amazing. So thanks for sharing. I'm curious, how has your experience as a first-gen American and Latino graduate student helped shape your academic and personal journeys?
As a first-gen student, I think grad school was even a bigger jump than undergrad was. I feel like my high school did a good job kind of setting some expectations. There's plenty of resources for first-gen undergrads to take, but for grad school, when I entered grad school as a master's, even when I switched into a PhD, I had almost absolutely no idea what I was doing. The requirements were listed on some pamphlet, but I really didn't understand what they meant, right? So what this meant was that when I took my qualifying exam after switching to a PhD, I bombed it. I've never done so bad on an exam until that qualifying exam. So I don't know if that came from lack of understanding of what the qualifying exam was, or there could have been more to prepare for it. But at the end of the day, using that kind of setback, I was able to study for the next semester that I had to take it. I really, sat down, learned everything that I needed to. I actually audited some undergrad classes. I didn't take any graduate classes for the entire next semester, and I knew that would set me back in completing my PhD, but I knew it was worth it. And it was interesting because when I filled my qualifying, my advisor was like, you don't have to do aerospace. Your background is mechanical. You can just take the mechanical qualifying and switch your program. But yes, that would have been an easy way out, and I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to prove to myself that I belonged in grad school, and so I persisted with taking the aerospace exam, even though there was, I would say, not a lot of confidence in me from my advisor. Just given how bad I did on the exam, yeah. It was so bad.
We don't need to dwell on the bad.
Yeah, exactly. And it was. I put in a lot of work in the summer to study, and when I took the next qualifying exam, I completely understood every single question on there. I felt like I was writing music when I was.
I love that.
Yeah, when I was answering all those questions, and I passed, and it really showed me that I am capable of grad school. And so I feel like when you're in grad school, you have that moment to test your background. I think my culture had a huge influence on that, because I just thought about my parents and how would they face a challenge like that. I know they didn't face a challenge like that academically, but just in life and work and with family and stuff like that. So that's really how I used my culture to kind of push my academic journey. But at the end of the day, I didn't do it alone. I had support systems. I think one thing about being Latino in grad school is I can't feel lonely.
Yeah.
So I relied on support systems like CMAS at the time, and Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. They have a lot of graduate programs out there. So yes, never do anything alone, but I definitely got through it with a lot of support.
I love that, and it's good to know. It's something that we reiterate to students a lot as we're working with them here at the Edge Center, that you need support, no matter how big or how small it is, right? As long as you have someone to fall back on to help push you through your journey. Thank you for sharing your motivations and your backgrounds with us. I mean, that's what we're here, for at Charlas Entre Amigos, is connecting those stories and that success to the real world. So I want to pivot to the topic of today's conversation, and that is the founding of the LGSA here at UTA. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind the founding of LGSA?
Oh yeah, I mean, this all started in 2022 in the fall. Like I said, I started grad school in the fall of 2020. It was all virtual for a whole year. And then we started doing some hybrid 2021. But fall 2022, I was fully on campus all the time. And so one thing I was looking for is really some sense of, community or some groups that I could join. In undergrad in Rochester, I was involved in a lot of organizations. I mean, some might say too many, but I was in SHEB at the U of R chapter. I was in this group called Salsa Spanish and Latino Student Association.
I love that.
Yeah, a lot of puns from that. But Douglas Leadership House, Korean Percussion Group.
Okay.
I did a little bit of everything. Percussion ensemble, and these were all student organizations, and they really gave me a sense of community in upstate New York, being from Texas, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking for something similar here. I was like, UTA is a bigger school. It's 4 times bigger than my undergrad. So I started looking at different organizations. I would actually take time out of my busy grad school day to jump into some meetings with AMAS, LSH, LASO, and LPA, the SHEB chapter here. And I was going to a little bit of everything, but one thing I felt was there was something missing. As a grad student, I'm in a completely different place in my life.
Yeah.
The responsibilities are different. It's more, research than classes and managing your own project. And so, this feeling of something's missing, I knew it had to do with, just my culture and also, grad school. So one thing I did, I went to an AMAS meeting, and they brought Richard Gonzalez. He was the founder of AMAS in the 1970s, the first Latino organization at a college campus in North Texas. And he was talking about how hard it was, and there wasn't that many Latino students on campus at that time. And so at the end of the general meeting, I raised my hand and I was like, "What if I started a Latino graduate org?" He's like, "Do it, just do it. I don't think there's one here at UTA," and I knew there wasn't one.
You've done your research beforehand, right?
I was trying to find it, but Richard really kind of was the pivot for me to really put my hands down and say, okay, I got to work on this. So I consulted CMAS and the director, Dr. Medina Vidal, and we worked through some ideas. I also messaged the LGSA at USC, University of Southern California. I talked to their president. His name is Edgar Lopez. Now he recently graduated with his PhD, and he told me how he runs LGSA and the different considerations for constitution stuff and things like that. And after consulting with all these groups, the last piece of the puzzle was finding an advisor.
Of course.
And so I have met Dr. Maria Delgado through an event from CMAS, and she did a presentation at this event. So after talking to Medina, we were able to see if she was on board. We messaged her, I emailed her, "Are you on board to join on this?" And the one thing I knew was that she loved working with students, and so yeah, she agreed to be our advisor, and she's been great so far. And the last kind of part of this founding was I started an interest form.
Okay.
I can't start an organization by myself.
You need people.
I need people, and so I started an interest form. I shared it around, and I got a lot more interest than I thought. The in the majors of the people that were signing interest form were like, to me, I had never met like someone from psychology or history department. So just a quick shout out to like Tiffany, Oscar, Norma, Julio, and JC. They were really kind of the founding members. We wrote the Constitution together. We decided on a name, the mission, the values, and that's kind of how we got started. Yeah.
Well, it's an idea, right? You identified a need, you got an idea, you got some, some support from some folks that are already here on campus, and y'all made it happen. I love it. You kind of bled into my next question, but I want to know a little bit more in depth. What has the journey been like in terms of building support and recruiting members from the UTA community?
Yeah, like you said, you need to identify a need. UTA is a Hispanic serving institution. Out of the 10,000 graduate students, around 20,000 are identified as Latino or Hispanic, and so there was a need for like a community on campus. And I think as long as you find that purpose and that kind of empty hole, you need to. I felt the need to be the one to fill it, right? I couldn't just wait around and see, well, who's going to start like some group. But in terms of recruiting for LGSA, it's been amazing just meeting so many people who are just starting grad school. They come into this space and they really make connections and use our resources that we offer. I think it's one of the kind of like the biggest things I've noticed was like in the fall semester we had 3 officers. And in the spring of last year, or this year, the spring, we moved up to 7 officers from the organization. So just that semester to semester growth that I saw on the leadership front, because the leadership is just a bigger commitment in general, right? A lot of meetings, decisions that need to be made, and so to see that many people step up, it really made me feel like. I had an impact. So in terms of support from the community, there's been almost automatic support from different departments. So like I said in the beginning, CMAS, they actually supported our first kickoff event.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the spring of 23, and we did a kickoff, and they paid for our food. We got the Madeline. It was really good food, and we had 25 people show up. It was a great event. It was outdoors, and we did like a networking social. So CMAS, they really helped us with that. So they've been there since the beginning. But now we have the Edge Center, right? So the Edge Center, we've been working with y'all so much to get these resources to the grad student population here, and also the graduate school. The graduate school has been also really supportive. Dr. Grover, the dean of grad school, has shown his support for us. In a lot of ways.
That's good. That's important. You need that support from those heavy hitters, right? So, I know you haven't been like LGSA hasn't been around a whole lot, but from your perspective, what are some of the standout achievements that the LGSA has realized since its founding?
Our biggest achievement, I say so far, is starting a initiative for the grad school. To provide grants to graduate organizations.
Okay.
Up to $5,000.
Wow.
And it was surprising to me because, we went to the grad school for support work. We wanted to see if they could help us fund some events. And they said, yeah, we've never done this. And so the moment that we submitted our proposal, they let us know that, hey, we're going to start an application for other graduate organizations to ask for money. And so it was a big accomplishment for us to know that not only did we secure funds from the grant, but we also paved the way for other graduate organizations to request funds from the grad school. But that's a big achievement I think we accomplished. But at the end of the day, when I founded Latino Graduate Student Organization, I said, look, if all else fails, all I hope is I made some friends. And so far, that's been one of the things I've been the most proud of, just just seeing the amount of faces that come to our events and our leadership and seeing how committed they are to the mission, all of that has really, that's been a really big achievement. And including that, so this year I stepped down as president, and we had a new president step in, JC, and last week I wasn't able to attend a officer meeting, and that was the first officer meeting I did not attend since the founding.
Yeah.
And guess what? They did so much work. They got a lot done. And that just, it makes me so happy to know that if I disappear, if I finish grad school, right, become a doctor, the organization will still be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've built a solid group, and those people that you said, that are ascended into leadership have shown their commitment to that. And I think that's a testament to the work that you've put into it. Now, a follow-up, how do you believe the LGSA has impacted the Latinx graduate student population here at UTA since its founding?
I think the biggest impact that we've made is that, one thing I hope that LGSA turns into is that we become like this big network of graduate alumni. I can imagine that once I have my doctoral degree and others from LGSA do, that we could come back and be speakers and panelists.
Of course, yeah.
And help the current students there achieve their goals.
What do you believe the impact has been?
Another impact that I think we really, I guess, highlighted is that we've been able to streamline the resources that our graduate student members that they have access to, right? So I think getting resources to students is always the biggest challenge, right?
It is.
We could find unlimited fellowships. There's 100 different things to apply to every year, but LGSA has the opportunity to streamline all of that and give it to our members in a way that encourages them to apply. Like for example, there's this like transportation fellowship through UTA that is offered to UTA students because it's like an HSI competition. So we funnel that through like our group me. We have various channels of communication, teams, a group me, and Instagram. So I think the Latino population at UTA benefits from that kind of streamlining of resources that we've been able to accomplish.
For sure. I definitely think the biggest highlights here are the fact that you have been able to build support from the graduate school for not just yourselves, but other organizations. Like you said, that has a ripple effect, and that is going to impact more students than I'm sure you even conceived at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you've been able to streamline, communication for students and make them more aware of what's available to them is huge. It's huge. I think something we realized when we started the Edge Center was that there's a lot of great support on campus, but there's not a way to let students know about it, right? Yeah. And y'all are helping build that pipeline. I think that's amazing. So looking forward, what are your hopes for the LGSA here at UTA as it continues to develop? And what advice would you give to any students interested in maybe starting similar organizations at their schools?
I think that's the hope I had. I hope that LGSA inspires other universities to build their own LGSA. I got inspiration from, like I said, USC. There exists like LGSA at UT Austin and Texas A&M, but up here in North Texas, I think we're the only ones, and so it would be amazing to not only start a chapter at the other universities like UNT or UTD, but that once they have their ball rolling, that we can all collaborate and be this giant network of Latino students. I don't think we have the foundation right now to start a national organization. I think.
Of course, yeah.
But maybe one day. And I know the hardest thing is connecting people from different fields, but I think that's one of the biggest advantages of LGSA is me as a STEM major, I get to see research from someone in social work, right? I have no idea how that looks like, but I've been able to learn about that through the organization. So I really hope to help and inspire other Latino grad students in the Metroplex to start their own organization. And if you do want to do that, my advice would really be to first identify that need, right? You need to find the void of support and see what's missing, right? The next thing I would say is make one or two friends. It only really takes one or two or three people to start an organization and set everything in stone. There's a lot of barriers in the beginning, like submitting a constitution, registration, safety training. There's a lot of things, that
All the technical things you got to go through.
yeah. There's a lot of barriers in the beginning, but it really only takes a small group to work through all that. So don't do it alone. If there's support out there, and the next thing would be to identify a department or a group at the university that already exists that would be your biggest supporters, whether that's through simply just like letting you borrow a room to meet, or even better, money, right? But really, yeah, just find that support, and since the need is there, most of the time, it won't be that hard. But just have to really follow up and do your best with it. The last thing I would say is to build genuine bonds with all the people that you meet. I mean, in the beginning, like I said, we were a small group, but I tried to build connections with the people who were showing up to our meetings on a personal level and on a genuine level. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna be friends with you so you could come to our meetings. No, it's I want to make this a lifelong connection, and at the end of the day, it does pay off when those people come back and support your events. I guess one more piece of advice is, get money, right?
Get money.
Get money.
Money always helps.
Money helps, yeah. So whether that's just to pay for food at general meetings or to do other stuff, it just enables you to do a lot more. And there's departments out there who have some extra, right? Either academic departments just say like, oh, we have biology students in our group. Can you help us a little bit? Yeah. Or the grad school, or centers that focus on either Latino studies or etc. But there's funds out there, and once you get them, the world is yours.
Oh yeah, and you'd be surprised how many organizations miss out on funding opportunities just from not knowing about them.
Yeah.
So it's definitely super beneficial to go out there and look. Well, David, thank you for sharing and giving us some insight into the founding and the potential future of LGSA here at UTA. In case no one's told you, your work is truly inspiring, and I'm confident that what you've started will carry on for years to come.
Thank you.
So now, before wrapping up, I want to know, what advice would you give to any aspiring or current graduate students who may be struggling to bridge that gap between their lived experiences, their identities, and their passions?
Well, a big piece of advice I have is to never set aside your culture for grad school. In the beginning of my research, it was hard to explain to like an advisor to say, I prioritize my family a lot, and if your advisor comes from a different cultural background, they might not understand that, right? I've seen cases of students who get burnt out because the expectations of them are not. It's not that it's too much expectation, but it's that they don't align with the values of that student and their priorities. So I would say to never give up or let go any part of your culture for grad school. Another thing too would be to kind of set boundaries with yourself or your advisor or just different things like that. One boundary I have set for myself is that every Sunday I don't think about grad school. Sundays are like my one day to reset, because if I don't reset, you'll get stuck in an idea. And in terms of research, it's kind of like writing, right? You get writer's block sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I need that break, and I set that boundary for myself. but also set boundaries with your advisor, right? And say, I need this. I need to be with my family on this day or that day. That's my priority. And so I think communication is a huge thing when you start off grad school. And that's something I wish I did starting off grad school. But one last thing is, don't forget your hobbies. I personally love going to concerts, road trips, all those things. So I make sure to do them. And in grad school, it's really easy to just be like, I'll come to the lab on a Saturday and run some tests, right? It'll only take a couple hours. No, like you need to keep your hobbies. Another thing I like to do is like play piano.
Okay.
I play marimba. So those keyboard instruments, I was able to take some lessons from the Eastman School of Music back in
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I didn't know they were attached to my undergraduate university. They're in the same umbrella academic institution. So, in my undergrad, I had time for this stuff. And so I make sure that I keep that stuff close to me in grad school. And it keeps me kind of sane,
For sure, yeah. No, great advice. I think it's super important. And you echoed a lot of the same things that Dr. Sanchez said in our first episode. And was, making sure you're setting boundaries, that you're prioritizing yourself, and that you take those opportunities to just step away for a minute. Sometimes you need those, right? So, David, thank you again so much for sharing your story and giving us a peek at what LGSA is all about. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, and we're excited to see how you continue to grow as a leader in our community. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to come on here, and I look forward to the other episodes too.
Of course, you're welcome back anytime. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of Charlas Entre Amigos. We're thankful for your continued listenership and support. Please tune in on Friday, November 29th, as we sit down to chat with the future Dr. Elizabeth Rubio about her journey from California to Texas and the lessons learned in the process. And in case you forgot, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes of Charlas Entre Amigos. Remember, whether you're a current graduate student or just curious about graduate life, we're here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, mi gente.